Morning, everybody. I'm Steve Lentini and the author of You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church How to See God Everywhere. And this is chapter 6 that I'm reading this week. So you don't have to buy the book. I'm not selling anything. I'm sharing what I learned from my near death experience on November 18th, 2002, and what I've continued to learn that God is never absent. God is in the now. And when I flatlined from intensive care with two friends at the end of my bed one second, and the next second I was one with the infinite, one with God, there was no past or future. There's only the now, which is so fascinating because I had been on a search for God after I decided not to become a Catholic priest when I met Sophie on the high school bus at the age of 17. So let me go right into reading the book. Chapter 6, Release. The Search Collapses. Living life as a human begins with movement. We reach, we seek, we try to arrive somewhere better, clearer, more complete. At first, this feels natural, even necessary. The search gives direction, it gives meaning, it gives hope that what feels missing can be found. Imagine the creator of a universe missing. Think about that. But at some point, another truth begins to surface. What if the search itself was never meant to succeed? What if the purpose of the search is to discover that God was there all along, ultimately? Not because it failed, but because it was meant to exhaust the illusion that something essential was absent. So, how could the creator of a universe be absent, and why would it need us to do ritual or prayer or anything to earn its love? What I experienced in my near death was unconditional love. The meaning of it is loving the moment, and humans have a hard time with it. We want to rail against everything. I mean, just look at social media or the news. We miss that all of the chaos and conflict in human existence is for us. Everything in your life, everything, especially the challenges and the difficult people and the difficult events, those are God knocking on your door to learn to embrace the moment and ask, what is it there to teach you? How can you learn and grow? And you see, this what I call the acorn brain, I have a trademark, that little voice in our head wants us to rebel because it understands joy and happiness. Those moments are easy. It doesn't understand the difficult moments. It's missing the gift. They're not wrapped as we would like. At least my experiences weren't, right? Flatlining. And they turned out to be the greatest moments. And I knew that. I had a sense of it even waiting for the ambulance. I was grateful. So let me continue to read here. So when seeking is out of energy, again, this is chapter 6 from my book, The Mosque, the Temple, or the Church, How to See God Everywhere. The search doesn't end with an answer. It ends with fatigue, physical fatigue, but the quiet realization that striving has never delivered what it promised. Striving has never delivered what it promised. So, you notice how often the mind postpones life. After I understand this is the mind talking to you. Once I'm healed, when I finally get there, I'll be satisfied when. Think about that. That's really a question. I'll be satisfied when I get here, or when I get the new house, or when I get to understanding why God is absent. The future keeps moving, presence keeps waiting. Eventually, something gives, not dramatically, and not heroically, but honestly. You stop pushing. Release is not an achievement. Release is not something you do. It happens when effort no longer makes sense. Just as falling was part of learning to walk, seeking was part of learning to see. So the search is not unnecessary. That's where people come to eventually, perhaps, some people come to eventually see God everywhere. So just as falling apart was learning to walk, seeking was part of learning to see. The seeking and the search was never wrong. It taught discernment. It revealed a limitation. It showed the cost of chasing certainty. This brain loves certainty. It wants things to stay the same. It thinks it's protecting us by keeping us comfortable. But seeking cannot deliver presence. Only stopping does. It's presence where God is, in the now, in my experience. Right? I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You have to prove it to yourself. So stopping, right, you find presence. And stopping is not passive. It's attentive. It means you're in the moment, which is where the creator of the universe is, where the God is, the goddess, the Christ, the Muhammad, the Abraham, the Buddha, whatever you call God. For some, it could be the the quantum field. It's okay. The collapse of becoming. Western life is organized around becoming titled, achieving accomplishments, acquiring material possessions, competing and besting those around us, becoming better, becoming right, becoming spiritual, becoming acceptable. But becoming always implies that this moment is insufficient, right? That's where the brain wants something else. Muhammad said, what reaches you was never meant to miss you. I'm paraphrasing. And what misses you was never meant to reach you. That's where humans get stuck. Angry at what reached them or lamenting what hasn't. Release begins when the assumption loosens. You stop trying to improve the moment and begin meeting it. Nothing mystical appears. Nothing needs to. This is all mystical. We're floating on a ball in the midst of nothing. A universe. We call it a universe, but it's mostly nothing. Mostly. Despite all the planets and everything else in the universe, it's mostly nothing. What remains when effort falls away? When effort relaxes, awareness doesn't disappear. It becomes obvious. Breath happens. Sensation moves. Life continues expressing itself without instruction. The same life that was present during the search is present now. The difference is not in reality, it's in attention. You're no longer trying to get somewhere else. The gratitude and surrender I experienced at the moment the door opened to begin my journey to God were letting go of all that seemed important. I sensed the presence of the divine, God, and at 50 years old, I'm embarrassed to say, fully present and ready to accept whatever each moment delivered. The end of the narrow path. Earlier, life may have felt like a narrow path. One wrong step away from error, judgment, or loss. I was fighting life and going to win my way. Eckhart Tolle says, when you fight life, life fights you. And that was my experience. I was fighting God knocking on my door. And it took a 2x4 blow to wake me up, right? 1 second I was fine. The next second I needed an ambulance. I was missing that life was showing me the way if only I surrendered. Release widens the field. There's room to stumble, room to feel, room to not know. Nothing needs to be defended or fought. Nothing needs to be proven or won, just lived. The question that no longer pushes. At some point, the question that drove everything softened. Not because it was answered, it arrived in the form of near death, and I was grateful because it no longer demands movement. The mind grows quiet, not through discipline, but through recognition of the moment, the presence of God everywhere, in every moment. There is nowhere else to go. I had no choice, only the now, on steroids, I call it. From the ICU to one with God, no past, no future. I survived acute necrotizing pancreatitis and an anterior myocardial infarction all in 5 days between November 13th and the 18th, 2002. What was always here? It was not an ending. It was the beginning of a new life, actually a new understanding of life and God as one. As I write this book, God has gifted me with 8,497 extra days. Now, as of today, perhaps even I can show you, as of today, it's 8,621 days. Let's see, 8,621 days extra since I flatlined. So it is this recognition that the beginning never left. Life was never a test to pass. God was never a destination to reach. Awareness was never something to earn. You were not meant to escape life to find meaning. You were meant to stop leaving it. Right? Let me read that again. You were not meant to escape life to find meaning. And you can see all the places people try to escape in this society. Food, drugs, sex, leaving partners, leaving jobs, running away. That's what we do as humans. I know, at least for me, I did many times. A gentle recognition. If the search collapses here, let it. Nothing important is lost. What remains is simple, ordinary, and unmistakably present. And from this place, a final question arises, not to be solved, but to be noticed. Not a question that sends you searching again, a question that can only be heard when movement stops. I was asked after my life review, stay or go? My answer was, as my consciousness responded, thy will be done. I had fully surrendered to the now, God, and next was in the ICU with the same two friends waiting at the end of my bed. That's chapter 6. We're going to go to chapter 7 next Friday. I'm going to read the whole book, this whole book, and then I'm going to read my new book, my latest book, which is What Reaches You Was Never Meant to Miss You. Maybe this book was meant to reach you. And we'll talk about being in the moment and embracing everything that shows up in your life, especially the difficult and challenging moments, especially those moments. And so I've been reading every Friday this book. You missed God on the way to the mosque, the temple, or the church, How to See God Everywhere. And I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to send me a comment. It's hard because I don't have an assistant yet to answer chats. So I do read them. So if you want to ask me a question, I will certainly answer the question. And if you want to reach out to me, let me show you how to reach me. Steve, add a Steve. Steve, go this way. Steve at stevelentini.com. Steve at stevelentini.com. And I'm glad to answer any requests. Now, I have a new app. It's in the notes about this live, which is Divine Sight. And if you click on the link in the description, it'll take you to the app that'll help you on this journey of realizing God is never absent. God is everywhere. Thank you for attending. I'm grateful.